and I like his style. I've learned most of my career from him. Those penetrating questions, because we want to know. But you've been very open, and that's good. One thing I wanted to ask you, we were talking about this drug problem, and we all know there's a drug problem in Henry County. It's everywhere.
Yes, sir.
But Vaught and David King, what impact, and I've always said, I said when that happened, that it's going to have a residual effect in the community in several different ways. Do you see that happening now? Do you still see something as a result of that?
Oh yes, yeah. That I mean, it's a big issue with the community on trust. I mean, they can see all that happen with people that they trust in their community that were there to protect them. And I mean, you can't get too much worse than what they were doing, Vaught and David King. And
two largest drug dealing police officers in the state of Virginia. Whoever thought that? I knew David. I didn't know Vaught. I knew David. I'd have never believed that.
Yeah, I wasn't there long enough to work along with Vaught or King, but it had a tremendous impact, and still does, to my opinion, to this day.
I know it does, because people call me and they say just a quick example, a lady called me and said, well, I'm scared to call the police. Yeah. And she said, I got this problem with these kids. I said, well, I'll take care of that for you. Just give me the information. That's what they need. She was just scared of them. Let's take some calls. Good evening.
Good evening, Bob, Mr. Cassell.
Good evening, sir.
I'm glad to see you back on there. I talked with you last time you was on there. I believe the public's going to be behind you, and I'm glad you running. Seem to be a nice, honest man. As soon as I get off this phone, it's going to be people calling saying, Lane Perry's a good man, Lane Perry's a good man.
And he is.
Guess what? I think he's a good man too, but that don't mean he's a great sheriff.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and I've told people, Lane's a good man. He's very likable. I mean, you meet him at these breakfasts that he goes to, and you meet him out, walk up to him, he'll shake your hand, smile, and very likable young man. I mean, I can't say nothing bad about him as a person.
Right.
My issue is he's not a good leader. I mean, just short of the fact, I'm not going to pull no punches. And that's my opinion, and I'm not the only one. There's about at least half of the department that's left since he's been in office. And he's going to tell you it's because of retirements. Now, I'm going to tell you, sit here, and he can tell you whatever he wants to, but that ain't going to be the truth. And further, as we get closer to the November the 5th, I'll have some of the deputies that's left, some of the years of 20-plus years service that's left, and that they wasn't ready to retire. They just retired just to get out of what was going on in the office that we didn't believe in.
Exactly.
But it's basically on one man. He's the one that holds the answer to it. And if you're losing those men, that experience, and these taxpayers, they need to understand, for every deputy that we have to retrain, it costs taxpayers approximately $50,000. So just January 2017 through mid-2018, that 18-month period, it cost taxpayers almost $2 million just in training these new deputies. And that's not talking about the effects on the street and the service that they're getting.
Right, I understand. I just want the public to know, because I know Eugene and all them are going to call when I get off this phone and say, oh, I know Lane Perry, and he's a good man. Well, you and I done agreed he's a good man, but that don't make him a great sheriff that we need. And I'm glad you're running. I think you're going to be surprised at the support you're going to have.
Thank you.
Maybe you won't be surprised, but I wish you luck, and you already got some support. You just don't know it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir. Good luck.
Appreciate you calling.
And I will tell you, when I got back from Afghanistan and I started going out and meeting people, and I'm having a ball. I mean, I am. I'm meeting people that I've heard about through the years, and families, and getting good response. I was serving breakfast up at Spencer Rulton this past weekend, and I had people coming up to me, introducing themselves and just talking, and I mean, I'm just having a ball. And I told this story to my wife the other day. She was mad at me. she sent me to Walmart to get some toothpaste and razors, and I was in Collinsville, and I said, well, it won't. I'll run in there real fast. It won't take me but a minute, and I couldn't get through the door good enough to where I had people following me in and talking, and I stayed in there for an hour and a half, and until she finally called me, and I'm having a good time. I think the public they've seen this administration in the office for far too long. Last election probably would have been. He came in at a time when the county needed him, and I give him that. It fell right in his lap. He wasn't ready for it. Really, what man would have been in those conditions, but right there. And he did a very good job the first term, maybe 2 terms. But he had a strong administration that helped him along that way. True enough, Steve Eanes was with him from the beginning, and that's one of the conversations I had with Lane before I left out. I voiced my opinion on some of the things that Eanes had said, and when you make the comment that he wanted to retire, Eanes wanted to retire after the last election, and he said I was going to get Lane reelected, and once I get him reelected, I'm going to go ahead and retire and move to the beach and enjoy retirement. And I think he had every intention to do so, but his wife didn't want to move, didn't want to stay here for the grandchildren. And so that I seen a big turn worse than what it was beforehand. And his words was, I'm going to pull another Joe Lewis. And we're talking about Joe Lewis Hairston, a very, very good man, very well liked and loved and respected. And he was forced to retire by code. You got to retire when you're 70. And he was referring to Joe, and he said, I'm going to pull another Joe Lewis. They're going to have to run me out of this office. And I'm going to stay around and make a lot of people mad, but he used a different word at that.
Yeah.
And I told Lane, I said, for an administrator to have that kind of a negative attitude, it filters down. And you can't have it. If you got a toxic employee, that's one thing. You can get rid of him, but if you got a toxic administrator, it just filters down and just ruins the whole office. The morale was down. People's leaving, going to other departments. Lane sat here and made the comment that he doesn't know of any deputy that's left for less money. I can tell him several of them left. One of them was Anson Shively. He left to go now he was a good investigator, worked for us for years. And I think Anson was even over there before I went there. In early 2000. Very good man. He came back, he left and went to Danville, stayed for a few years. He came back to Henry County and he left taking a $5,000 pay cut to go back to Danville, driving every day back and forth. And when a man with that many years of service, and Anson's got 20-some years, that just shows you. And that's just one example, but I've got many.
Wow. Good evening, caller.
Yes, how you doing?
Good.
Yes, I'd like to ask Mr. Cassell a question. Is the Jennifer Short case being worked as hard as everybody says that it is?
Well, let me explain to you on that. And I've told people before, I know Lane is worried about this election, and I know that would be his lottery ticket if he got that one solved. Anyone and everyone that's going to run might as well just forget it. That's such an important case. Before I left out, there was a investigator of Curtis Spence by the name of Curtis Spence. He was working that with some other cold cases. Prior to that, it was Kimmy Nestor. And Kimmy, for the ones that know Kimmy and know what I'm talking about, very dedicated. That man, he can work 3 days and go off for 1 hour of sleep and be right back at it. He worked that case and other cold cases to the core and would still be working it. But shortly after I retired, Curtis Spence retired, and I can't say for definite if anyone's working it. I would say that probably as calls or tips are coming in, and I know Lane used the media again not too long ago with this the new newspaper, The Heritage, and did an article on a short case on that, and was asking for tips to be brought in. But to get to your answer, I'm not real sure. If it is, they're not just working the short case. Curtis was working the short case as tips were coming in, and working the other cold cases. But I don't know if anyone replaced him or not.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good luck.
All right, thank you, sir.
Talking about that short case, that bothers everybody. It bothers me.
Oh yeah.
There's been rumors and stuff said that maybe the police are involved in this, maybe drugs are involved in this. I don't believe that.
I don't either.
I talked with the FBI about that, and because that was when David King and Vault and all that was going on. They had no indication whatsoever any of that was connected drugs. And Sheriff Cassell's theory is real simple. They were after that little girl. It was a sex crime. All right, we got to take a break. I can't get to talk. I want to come back on that because I've got a theory on that case, and I passed it on to Lay. And I was thinking about that last night. I thought hard. I wasn't going to release it to the public, but I'm going to release it because I daggone think this is something that needs to be checked into that hasn't been checked into, and I'll tell you why. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.